March 22, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the Thinkorswim platform. This is what the chart looked like today. You don't have to watch the entire video. You can actually just go down to the descriptions below and you can see where I took my trades as well as any potential setups that I thought I saw and if I took them or I didn't take them. So the only catalyst today, which happened at 11 o'clock Pacific Standard, was the FOMC decision on the rate hikes. Everybody thought, or most people thought it was going to be a 25-point hike, and it turned out to be true, and it happened right around here. And around 11:30 Pacific Standard Time, this is when Jerome Powell comes out, gives a little color, answers some questions. This is how I drew up my charts today. I took a total of 2 trades. One was break even and one was green. And this red line is kind of an indicator for me because right around 10:30, I had to step out. So let me just kind of clear this up a bit. As you can see in the early morning and into the regular trading day, the volume was actually quite low and there wasn't much going on. And then I left at around 10:30, but then shortly after at about 11 o'clock, that's when the announcement came and you could see it got really choppy and whipsaw. And then around 11:30, it kind of went kind of haywire again. So for the most part, at the beginning of the day, it looked like it stayed in a trading range. Then it's hard to really say what it was going on here because this is just very emotional trading. And then it looked like it just kind of went into these 2 trading trend channels. Like it looks like it was one leg down and a second leg down. There was a 100-point move from the top to bottom, which is crazy. So let me just go into what I saw today. So this is the pre-market. I don't trade the pre-market, but there wasn't much price action going on until the FOMC meeting minutes, not meeting minutes, but the meeting comes out and tells officially what the rate hike is going to be. I think a lot of traders are just sitting on their hands. So I didn't do anything because I don't trade in the pre-market. So upon the open, it looks like this is potentially a new high in the beginning. First entry long, second entry long. And I did see the second entry long. So it's first entry long, and then the second entry long sets up right here. So I saw this, but this is only like 3 minutes into the day. I just, wasn't ready to take a trade, wasn't mentally prepared to do anything. Plus, it's only 3 minutes into the day. It could still be kind of choppy, so I wasn't that devastated to not take this trade. It's a good signal bar though. There's also 2 legs down clean. So you would think after a measured move, it might bounce back up, but it doesn't have to. But if you took the trade, it looks like it would have worked out. There is a confirmation higher low that shows up shortly after. I didn't really like this higher low because it's too bearish. If it closed a little bit more bullish, then I'd be more inclined to think there's a trade. Plus, there's not enough room to make it back to the EMA, because right now I don't really see a trading range other than this big guy here, which is made from the beginning, pre-market, bottom, and top. I did kind of drag it in a little bit. It didn't have to be all the way at the top and all the way at the bottom. Looked like it fit at the bottom pretty nicely here. So there is a higher low here. If you took it, I think it might have been a little aggressive. Turns out it would have worked. And the price action continues moving. At this time, you do see a new high, first entry long here, and then the second entry long. But this is a good signal bar. But right now, I did draw this support here, and I wasn't sure if the top of this trading range was actually here or up here. And I did have it lower at one point early on. So it went down, bounced up. The EMA doesn't really matter at this point, but if this was actually a little bit lower, closer to the bottom of the trading range, I would have felt more confident. Now you could have said potentially that this was the bottom of the trading range. But with all these little spike throughs, I ended up just drawing it a little bit lower, just to go 1, 2, and then potentially a third touch, and then later confirms, good touches down here. But it was too late to try to take a trade there for me. Prices continue moving up. And so when it came up to here and it breached my original resistance line up here, I ended up dragging it up to here because I like these 2 touches here and then this one here better. So I widened the trading range a little bit. And I do see a second entry long here. So I see from here is new high, first entry long. There's a pretty good signal bar. I was waiting thinking there could be potentially a second entry long here, but the EMA is pretty flat and it's right here at the middle of this larger trading range. It's right at the midline. And for this trading range, it's pretty close to its own midline. So if I kind of make the midline show up here, which is this guy here, it's also right at the midline. So when it's right at the midline, I'm not 100% sure, because it was trending down. Is it going to bounce back up, or since it just touched the top, is it going to come all the way back down here? But I did keep in mind there was a potential second entry long there. Looks like it would have worked. So right now I do have more of a bullish bias. Prices continue moving. It's just chopping. It's testing the top of this trading range. Looks like it's keeps going up. It breaks through. It touches the top of this trading range, the big one. I'm sitting on my hands. I don't see a good clean setup yet. Volume is also pretty low today because, as I said, most people are probably just waiting for the FOMC FOMC to declare what the official rate hike is going to be. I did see a potential measure move here of one leg up, which kind of spanned the entire length of the trading range, and then I just dropped it right here, whereas the new looks like a new swing would occur. And as it crept itself up, I thought, okay, there might be some kind of reaction up here. And you could have considered this as a new low here, first entry short, and here you'd be watching potentially for a second entry short. But this isn't a very good signal bar, and right here it doesn't work because it kind of went down and potentially be a failed second entry. But I'm not looking to take a long or a short at this time, just because I don't have a good feel which way the market might be moving. It looks like it went up. It tried to test the top of this measured move. It could have been considered close enough, and then it started moving back down. Looks like the EMA is holding prices, breaks through, and now for sure it's breaking down below. So I did see potentially this is a new high, because if this is the new high, you'd say the first entry long, second entry long, but then you can't really reset the count because this would be like a third entry long. And I said, okay, there's a new localized high. So first entry long, second entry long. But on this second entry long, it fails all in the same candle. That it closed below the EMA, which is nice, but I just would rather have had this close or the open a little bit closer, the body closer to the EMA. I would have felt a little bit better about taking a potential trade as a failed second entry long. Here, if I did take this failed second entry long from here, first entry long, second entry long, it fails. If I put my entry right here, one tick below, it would have picked me up, come back up, and I'd be pretty nervous because my stop would have been probably either above this guy, but more likely above this guy to give it a little more room. And it just looked like it would be a better position here as opposed to getting to here spiking through. Then I do see a lower high. So I thought this is probably a possible trade, but while this is happening in real time, I was trying to interpret, okay, this first entry long, second entry long, is this truly a failed second entry long, or am I just miscounting? And then I was looking at least if there's a first entry short, and then this is technically a second entry short, but this already broke below this guy. So technically your count would restart. It would be like here is a new low, but then here is also a new low. But what does happen is this is a lower high, and it confirms this failed second entry long. But I just wished that it was closer to the EMA, like it was more of a push up and then flash down. Then I knew like, okay, the bulls just got kind of just depleted when it went up, and then all the bears are in play. But that didn't quite happen, so it didn't quite set up right, although I do see it as a possible trade. I just didn't like it. I also did consider that it is breaking back into this larger trading range, but it was a little confusing for me, so I just decided to sit on my hands and watch the trade go. Prices continue down. I draw the smaller trading range, trend channel, breaks through, overshoot, comes out, makes a new high here. And this is actually where I took my first trade. So I said this is a new low. It's a first entry short, kind of like a hidden first entry short. Then I saw a second entry short. And this actually, in hindsight, wasn't the best. I guess it's more of an aggressive entry because the signal bar, in this case, when it triggers below, it's a visual or a hidden second entry short. And that kind of already gives me pause. I'd rather have it be more clean. Like this bar should have been a little bit higher, the low of this candle, then I could say it's a clear second entry short, like first entry short here and the second entry short. But since it's a little iffy right now, considering this a failed second entry short, I thought it was a little bit aggressive because it looks like it could just be continuation down. So I did take a trade. It ends up working, but I wanted pretty much 2 points out of this. So my trade was actually right here at 40.30. I'll just show you the trade actually, because I only took 2 trades, enough time to talk about it. 40.38.25, which is right about here at the top of this candle. I wanted 2 full points, so I needed to get up to 40 40, 25, actually 40, 40, 50 to make sure it ticks through. Here makes it up to 40, 40, still not there because I need 40, 40, 50. This actually makes it up to 40, 40, 25, so it's just under my exit. And at this point, I was getting nervous because my stop was here, so I just moved it all the way up to the entry plus 1 tick, and it flashes through. So you can see I got a little bit of slippage. The entry here is pretty much the exit here because it didn't quite get up to the very top. So it's a break-even trade, but with commissions, I lost just a teeny tiny amount, pretty much lunch money. But I was okay with that. I mean, if I just wanted for 1 point, I would have gotten it, but I was going for 2 points, which I thought, might break past this guy. In hindsight, I now know I have to be very wary and careful of the previous high. On a trade like this, it is counter to this big trend. So maybe I should have just went for the 1 point and then I would have gotten it for sure and just started off the day with a good trade. Prices continue moving. And here I do see a fail breakout because I drew my trading range here, cutting through the tops, and here. And what I liked here is it looked like it touched 3 times, 1, 2, 3. So I felt this is probably a failed breakout. This candle could have closed better, but I thought, okay, it went through and then it flashed down and closed right here because it opened. It never broke below the open, made a double bottom, flashed up, came back down. Although it is kind of like I'd rather have it closed closer or inside this trading range, I decided to take a chance on this trade. And then it went through because I wasn't really worried about the EMA at this point because it's too flat and I thought it might have made it to the top. I get my 2 points. So I 40, 36, 20, 75, and then 40, 39. So I got 2 points plus a little bit more for commissions. And then I dragged my runner up. And as it was chopping around, I said, you know what? I'm going to take it off a little early. So it moves up about half a point and I got stopped out. So those are 2 trades I took for the day. And then we'll just go through the rest of the day. Prices continue moving. And here, when this formed, I was a little confused because I saw this as trading range. And this is originally where it was. Then I dragged it down to here, thinking, okay, there's potential, bottom of the trading range here, or this could actually be the bottom of the trading range. I wasn't sure, but I did see a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. And I saw, okay, second entry short is being confirmed here, but wait, don't I see a double top here? So it's a new high, first entry long, second entry long. But since it's a second entry long, technically it's either going to fail on one or the other because this is a first entry short, second entry short, and there's a first entry long, second entry long, and neither have been confirmed to fail yet. But I also saw this could potentially be a lower high if it's a failed second entry long because it could be here. If you do the count from here and you actually include this in the count, you could say it's a first entry long, second entry long, and then here it'd be a lower high. But that would be kind of like changing how you do the count on the fly because if you group this together, then it's only first entry long, followed by a second entry long. If you counted them independently, you could say it's a first entry long here, second entry long, a potential failure, and then a lower high confirming the failure. So that's kind of how I wrote up everything here. It's like a second entry short, fails second entry long, potentially a lower high. And then I also had this trend line in play as well. This trading range didn't really matter because you're in the middle of the trading range. So all this kind of threw a little bit of confusion all over the place in all directions for me. So I thought I'm just going to sit and watch what happens. So it turns out the failed second entry long would have been correct, counting it as a lower high, as well as the second entry short, because it was enough room from here all the way down to here. But I was also concerned that if this was the true bottom of the trading range, to take an entry on this candle, I was thinking I might be selling at the low. But it turns out it wasn't, and it kind of just kept going down. Of course, I didn't know that at the time, so this is a very interesting setup here that I'll be studying over and over and thinking about. And prices continue moving down. I don't see a good setup. EMA is holding prices down. I do see a failed second entry long if I took it from here. It's technically a new high, first entry long, second entry long. As soon as I made the second entry long, it looks like it ticked one above and then it failed. I didn't want to take this trade just because the signal bar, which would be, this guy, is too bullish, right? And it did reject, it didn't quite touch the EMA and it did reject down. The concern here was it might be running into this potential support down here, as well as this larger trend channel that I've drawn. So that kind of made me pause and think I might be near the lows. Certainly it could always break down lower, but I don't know that at the time. If this had set up a little bit higher, maybe I would have taken the trade. So I just kind of left it alone and just sat back just because, if you don't know, you just gotta, well, just gotta be careful. So prices continue moving down. It breaks through this, overshoots, and then it comes back up. So I'm thinking maybe there's going to be a correction. And then right here, this big red line is when I had to stop trading for the day because I had to go run some errands today. So afterwards, this is all, I did see the rest of the chart and then I went back and tried to pretend what I would do in real time. So my mind and my foresight would be for sure a little biased now. So it's just a kind of a heads up. So prices continue moving. It's getting close to the FOMC meeting official release. And right here, right around 11 o'clock, you can see things went crazy. So I don't want to be a part of this, even if I was trading, if this, I was sitting at my desk. I mean, you could say, okay, there's a new high here, first entry long, or you can count it in as a hidden second entry long, first entry long, second entry long. Even with saying all that, if this event wasn't going to happen today, I don't like this setup just because it's not very clean, not very clear. And of course, knowing that this is happening, at 11 o'clock or 11 o'clock Pacific Standard, I certainly don't want to be a part of that. I mean, yes, you could say, well, if I just did a Hail Mary play and just tried to trade it, I would have made a bunch of money. You could say that, but you could also say, how do you know that for sure? It could have easily flashed down the other way. On top of that, I want to point out that this is 11 o'clock, this candle. This candle is also 11 o'clock. This candle is also 11 o'clock. This candle here, also 11 o'clock. This candle here, these 5 candles are all 11 o'clock. And then finally it makes it 11:01. So these are all happening within 12 to 15 seconds. These candles are flashing. To honestly say you're going to chase this, maybe you could, maybe you won't. But that's just, that's not even trading. It's more like gambling to try to trade that. Then it makes a new high because first entry long, second entry long. So what is this? This is happening at 11 o'clock and this happens at 11:02. So you have about 2 minutes to decide what is really happening. Like that is very, very quick. I mean, are you even going to get filled? There's going to be slippage? Probably get slippage. So just more of a cautionary tale. Like be very careful when you're going to think you're going to trade and make a whole ton of money because you also see this after the fact it happens. So I have to remind myself that, oh, I totally would have made this great trade. Look at all these points I would have gotten. However, think about how fast this happened. So prices continue chopping around, moves up. I'm staying out of this big mess, whether there's a second entry or not. It's just not worth it. It's not worth like doing a Hail Mary play and then losing when you could just walk away with, your 1 or 2 good trades. Prices continue chopping. I do see a second entry short here, but I'm definitely not going to trade it because, well, even if I was here, I wouldn't trade it because here's new low, first entry short, second entry short. It is 15 minutes after the event, but this isn't a very good signal bar. I don't like that signal bar. Prices continue chopping, moves down, setting up. This red line, by the way, is the top of this measured move, which doesn't matter at this point now because it's just this whole section is kind of super choppy. Plus, when you get around 11:15, you have to be ready for when Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, comes out and speaks because when he talks, it can be interpreted every different way by a lot of different people, which could cause another set of crazy volatility. So assuming that he wasn't going to talk and this is a regular trading day, I did see a new low here, first entry short, second entry short, but I don't like the looks of that signal bar. Technically, the second entry short happens here because it's the first entry short, and then this one actually breaks below this guy. So technically, the second entry short already happened, and then of course it chops down. This is when he starts talking. I do see a lower high confirming the second entry short comes up. Also, it's a failed second entry long. So first entry long, second entry long. But this is only 2 minutes after he started talking. And again, look at this. Look at the timestamp on this. This is 11:30, 11:30, 11:31, 11:31, 11:31, 11:31, 11:31. All these candles are happening within a minute. So if you're watching a 1 minute candle, yes, you just see all this glossed over. But we're looking at the 2000 tick charts. That means each one of these candles, 2,000 trades were made. Not 2,000 contracts, because there are probably a lot more, but just 2,000 trades were made. And each trade has to be at least one contract. So that's a lot of crazy volume happening in a very short amount of time, hanging on Jerome Powell's every last word. So just keeping that in mind, it was just like, if I was sitting here, I would definitely not want to trade it. I'd just be watching with popcorn and watching the fireworks. Then prices continue moving up, makes the high of the day. This is 15 minutes after he started talking. Then, of course, he goes into his Q&A where he adds color, adds more insight of what the Fed's thinking. I just drew this as practice when I got home, just to see, okay, maybe there's these trend lines, and to just simulate if there was no FOMC meeting today and no Jerome Powell press conference, what would I have drawn and what would I have seen? So this is just good practice, discounting, what actually happened. So you could just practice and see if you could pick out trend lines or setups. So I didn't really see any good clean setups. EMA is holding, so I wanted to look for reason to go short, but each time it didn't really provide a good key entry point other than this trend channel going down as well as this trend channel. But those weren't good enough reasons for me to take a trade if I was going to take a trade. I do see this potentially set up because this is a new high because it's higher than the previous. First entry long, second entry long, right coming up right here. And potentially a new low, first entry short, second entry short just occurred right here when it broke below. So this is potentially a second entry short failure and a potential second entry long. Turns out, if you took the long side, it would have worked, but it could have been gone the other way because it's the first breakout of this trend channel. It might want to look to make a new extreme, made one leg up, one leg down, and it could potentially make another leg down. But in this case, it didn't. It just kind of continued moving up. And even though this is a close above the EMA, I thought it would have been kind of an aggressive entry to take. I want another confirmation, maybe a higher low, but you don't quite get a higher low until about here. But even then, when you just saw this, it's kind of far from the whole reaction. So I wouldn't have wanted to take that trade anyways. Prices continue chopping. This is kind of where the market's recovering, digesting what he said. I pretty much at this, I still wasn't here, but if I were seeing this, I'd probably just skip the rest of the day because it was only 30 minutes left. But I do see this setup here. Now, in context, if this had happened earlier in the day, this would have been a worthwhile trade. If this type of setup that was not toward like 11:30 to 11:45, then this is a decent setup because in this little micro view, you do have a new low here. I mean, you could consider, okay, this is one big grouping as the new low, or you could just take it literally as a new low here. First entry short, comes down, pulls up, second entry short. This is pretty decent because this is the signal bar. Even though the signal bar is bullish and it closed bullish and above the EMA, it's running into this top of this descending trend channel. Also, this candle is pretty nice. So when it closed low, I wouldn't have felt hesitation putting it like one tick below here because there's enough room to make it to the bottom for at least for a scalp. Plus, there's two key entry points, this guy and the EMA. And I'm going with trend. But as I said, this happened right at 11:43, which is too late in the day. And then the price just continued moving down. I mean, this would have been a pretty nice trade, even if you had a runner, because you could just keep it one tick above. And you probably would have been taken out probably by this candle. But that's still pretty good because it's at 406 and your entry would have been probably around 416. So maybe at least a 10-point trade. And then the market just kind of moved into the close. So today was a little wild. Started off very slow and well, just very slow right here. And then right around 11 o'clock, fireworks started and it's chopped around. Then Jerome Powell came out and it looks like the market sold off. Whether they like the news or not, this is just kind of what I saw today. So hopefully that was helpful.